So today I want to share with you the breakout of World War II, which is a super, super complex and foreboding topic. We're going to try and do a brief introduction into the development of Hitler's Nazism and how that spills out into war in Europe. We'll look a little later on at what World War II in the Pacific, the Japanese theater, looks like. Let's leave that apart for now. What we'll try to do for the next 15 or 20 minutes is just basically roll out the idea of Nazism and see how it flows into kind of an inevitable world war. So our mission will be ultimately to see how Hitler becomes the center focal point of World War II and what that's going to look like. So before we get there, we need to warm ourselves up by reflecting a bit on the Treaty of Versailles. It seems weird to spend a whole lot of time focusing on one document, but as you'll see in this presentation, it is the key to understanding why there was a Second World War in the first place. So take a second to look at these questions, hit pause, see if you can answer them yourselves, and then when you unpause, let's take a look at the answers. So reflect on these. First, how did the Treaty of Versailles punish the Germans? Second, why would the Germans have been mad at the treaty? A little more specific than maybe just they were angry about being punished. What do you think was probably the key factor that made them the most mad? And then what other countries or who else would have been angered by the treaty? Hit pause, see if you can answer that yourself. All right, so let's see how we did. First and foremost, the Treaty of Versailles, the big factor that Germany was really shook by was the reparations system. The Germans had to pay off Britain and France for having lost the war to them. In addition, the Germans were forced to give up their army. They had to give up land they had gotten in World War I, and they had to sign that super embarrassing war guilt clause. If you really know your World War I, you'll know that actually it wasn't Germany that started the whole thing. It was that story about the assassination of Franz Ferdinand between Austria and Serbia. But again, the purpose of the Treaty of Versailles was to humiliate Germany because they realistically caused the most damage. What for the average German is the impact of that? Why would the average German have such strong feelings about the Treaty of Versailles? Maybe you aren't in the military, maybe you don't live in one of those lands, one of those regions that got transferred away from the country. The real kicker to this thing is the reparations system. Germany's destroyed after World War I. They need money, they need resources to be able to rebuild the mess that is left behind after World War I. But the treaty requires that Germany give up money in monthly payments to the winners of the war, Great Britain and France. So the Germans felt hopeless. They knew they lost the war. They lost the war. They could accept that. But how are they going to ever rebuild or have hope for the future if all of the money that they're earning out of their regular economy, a good fraction of it is getting sent abroad? So the average German felt a really strong way about the Treaty of Versailles. In addition, two other countries that also felt a little miffed by the Treaty of Versailles, Japan, first and foremost. We saw in a previous video that Japan felt there was this, and really justified, there was a real sense of overt racism among the parties that were at the Treaty of Versailles. In addition, Japan got no kickback for having helped fight against the Germans in World War I. Were they one of the essential power players? No. But the Japanese people died trying to end World War I, trying to defeat the Germans. And in payment, the Japanese got nothing. Same thing for Italy, too. Italy actually had some land snatched up, and they lost people trying to assist the British and the French in resisting the Germans and resisting the whole German alliance. And Italy got nothing. So you have three countries that are really angry here. You got Germany that's really frustrated and hopeless at the same time. Plus Japan and Italy also are feeling a certain type of way. So how are we going to actually try to limp along and rebuild Germany from here on? I've tossed some titles in German just for funsies. So here we have Deutsche Reichstag auf der Weimar Republik. The Weimar Republic is the new government of Germany at the end of World War I. It's built kind of like the French Republic. It's called the Weimar Republic. And as you can see here in this very low quality historical photo, it operates like a Congress. They're really switching it up from what used to be an absolute monarch under the Kaiser. Now they got themselves something that looks like a modern democracy. And their big goal is to manage Germany in this very difficult time. paying reparations while still trying to bankroll the reconstruction of the country. It's a challenge. And how are they going to bankroll this reconstruction when they have so little to work with? Well, the Weimar Republic, this new government, felt like they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. So they took a decision that no country ever wants to do, just printing money. You'll know from previous sections we've looked at, all the way back even to when we saw mercantilism in the Spanish colonies in the 1500s. If you just print money, each coin, each bill is worth less because more of it's floating around. It's less scarce. And so the money you have in your pocket, as the government prints more money, what you've got in your pocket loses value. The number stays the same, but it stretches less and less far. And so suddenly the German people, they see a new government, they think maybe they're going to figure it out. Well, once they start printing money to send off to the British and to the French, then the average German, their wealth starts to get even lower and lower. So ultimately, there's some tension with the Weimar Republic, the new government. People are saying basically, we should be your priority, not paying off the reparations. So here we have a Finanzenkrise, this crisis in the financial sector of Germany, because salaries stay the same, rents stay the same, mortgages stay the same, but the money that you have already in your pocket is not going as far as it used to. In this picture, we see a potato vendor. Imagine having to count individual potatoes you could afford with your money that's worth so little now, when maybe 3 years ago, even during the war, your money could buy enough groceries for the week. And here you are now trying to get individual potatoes. And so the average German, things are getting worse. Here we have Frauen erhielten Wahlrecht. You can tell from the picture, it's a bunch of women here. As always, we see in historical movements, typically who's at the forefront of bringing attention to injustices? It's women. We saw it in the French Revolution with the Bread March. Here, the women are back to the streets protesting the fact that they can't put food on the table for their families. They can't make their dollar stretch or their mark stretch. And so now people are actively taking to the streets to protest. The Weimar Republic, that new government, really then has to think, do we continue to print all this extra money to make the reparations go away? Or do we back up on the reparations and start focusing on our own people? The people are protesting. And so the Weimar Republic takes a very dangerous decision to stop paying the reparations altogether. So France, feeling some type of way about it, invades. Frankreich dringt in das Ruhrgebiet. The Ruhr Valley is this area on the west side of Germany, very accessible to the French. And it is where all of the great soil and land is. It's the breadbasket of Germany. This is priceless land, and people need the Ruhr Valley to grow crops and live. For the entire country depends on the Ruhr Valley. And so when France goes, okay, well, you're not going to pay us in money, you're going to pay us in land. When they invade the Ruhr Valley, Germans feel even more hopeless. Their money is worth less now, and they just got invaded by France. And so people typically at this point, your average German is starting to look at this new Weimar Republic government and ask, you're our government. You should be fighting for us. Things are getting worse now. And so Germans overall start protesting in the streets. The prices are skyrocketing. And at the end of the day, the Weimar Republic it's dug itself a pretty deep hole. Now, a note just from me, when I look at the story and I think back of what it means to be the Weimar Republic, I know the printing of money was a bad plan. That's never good. That's not ever going to pan out for anyone in the way that they hope. But what is the Weimar Republic going to do? I mean, you could have been a magician coming in to govern Germany after World War I, and it would be really, really hard to escape the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. It doesn't matter who or how Germany was governed after the Treaty of Versailles. Ultimately, it would be impossible to rebuild Germany in a way that would serve the German people. They were set up for failure. So I'm very careful in my historical analysis and my thinking, and when I draw opinions, I'm careful to separate the bad decisions the Weimar Republic made just as bad decisions and the impossible situation they were put in the first place. So here he is, the one you've been waiting for, Hitler. How does this random Austrian ex-art student suddenly become the leader of a new movement called Nationalsozialismus, or Nazism. Hitler comes from a somewhat difficult background. He serves in the army in World War I. He's just some dude. But at one point, when he is incarcerated, when he's thrown in jail for protesting the circumstances of the Weimar Republic, he develops Mein Kampf, his magnum opus, his book of his philosophy and his vision of what's going wrong with Germany. The book itself is full of nationalist ideas and full of these romantic uh, exclamations about what Germany should be like, and purifying Germany and making Germany for Germans by Germans. And it is a very, very catchy and appealing platform for a people that are desperate. The people of Germany are hopeless and desperate, and their democracy under the Weimar Republic is not giving them what they wanted. So he develops with some associates Nationalsozialismus, combination of that nationalism, that aggressive love for your country, as well as socialist policies, that the government is in control and owns the factors of production. So if you kind of feel the vibe of how those two would connect, nationalism and socialism, you're going to need a really, really strong figure to lead such a massive government under socialism with the pride of nationalism. So he manages to get some seats in the Weimar government, and once they get a majority, they dissolve it and they turn Germany into a new platform called, or a new government called the Third Reich, or the Third Kingdom. And the people of Germany are seeing this guy making changes rapidly. The Weimar Republic government from before didn't serve them. And now here's a guy who in very short amount of time has skyrocketed to visibility nationwide. And it's very enticing for people. And Mein Kampf makes no secrets of the fact that Hitler has problems with different groups. He has problems with people of color, with Jews, with gays, with people with disabilities. He's not exactly coming out here, in World War II, surprise the Holocaust. He's planted these seeds all the way along, but the people of Germany are desperate. They're looking at a guy who is promising to put food on the table. And for once, it's someone who's making some kind of a change. So this is not a defense of Hitler. This is I kind of get why your typical German saw this guy and went, well, he's different. Let's try it. Let's go in. What we have isn't working. Let's go radically different. And it wasn't universal. A whole bunch of Germans, a good slice of the population, did not want to follow Hitler. But for the average German, they were at least curious. And so with this new government, he quickly changes up policies and starts changing how Germany works. He's actually taking action. He creates a Gestapo, a secret police, to make sure that people who are unloyal to Germany and the ideals of being German are punished or taken away or happen to disappear. He resurrects the title of Chancellor and becomes the lead executive and judicial leader of Germany. That means that the court systems are now under his control, as well as the actual functions, day-to-day functions of Germany. So he is the judge and the executioner at the same time. So what are really his tenets? What is he putting into place now that he is running Germany? We're in the mid-1930s. Also, you should know that the Great Depression in the United States has some huge ripple effects in Europe at this point. So the economy in Germany is also being affected by the United States as well. So really, Hitler is up against what the Weimar Republic was too. The wealth is starting to fade again. And now he has to keep people united. So under Nationalsozialismus, or Nazism, that nationalism, he is going to keep the people looking forward. He's going to say, you know what, let's forget today. Let's look at tomorrow. We are going to work for, and we are going to fight for a great Germany. We're going to make this idea of being German, just like it was when we united under Otto von Bismarck. It worked then, let's do it now. And so the nationalism explodes. The real mechanism for Nazism is this term, Lebensraum, or life's room. It's this idea that Germans were superior and deserved land and deserved resources. This really, really rung true for your average German who saw hopelessness in the streets. If Hitler comes and says, hey, actually, Germans, we are a superior people. we were targeted unfairly by Britain, France, and the United States. Then suddenly the Germans have an enemy. And obviously the Treaty of Versailles represents that. But if Hitler can say, no, we are a special people, and we were taken advantage of at a low point by these evil empires. And so we deserve their land. We deserve more around us. And that really was a plus for the Germans who followed Nazism. Anschluss is the third main factor of Nazism, the idea that all people who speak German and identify as German unite as one. Hitler felt that some of the borders drawn up in Europe limited the ability of these German speakers, German identifying people, to be one force together. And so he proposed that at some point, all German peoples share one space within one border. And for the people who didn't have any hope, that gave them something to belong to, even if it implied probably violence is going to happen along the way. Anschluss gave people who had no hope something to believe in, and us versus them. So this actually was really, really appealing to the Germans outside of Germany, the Austrian Germans, the Germans who were in Czechoslovakia, the Germans who were in Poland. They felt like they could belong to something. And so Nazism starts to spread elsewhere outside of Germany. And so how is Hitler going to use this new energy to benefit him and benefit his country and grow his power? Well, if you think about a people who have suddenly gotten some wind under their wings and got some super motivation from all of these changes, if you put them to work, if you make them believe that their labor, their actual hour-to-hour manual labor of whatever job they do is serving the greater ideal of Germany, then you're going to get way more out of these workers than, say, workers who are just clocking into their jobs hopeless day to day. So Hitler almost wants to militarize the average worker in getting them pumped up to work in the name of Germany. And now the factories and industries of Germany have hyper productive workers that are cranking out products on the regular at a very fast clip. And the government is investing more and more and more in them. People are starting to see their factory lines are bustling and the production in town is booming. And some people who were hesitant about Hitler before see that suddenly he's leading the country to produce a lot. And the people who are already on the Nazi side get this feedback cycle where they're even more invested. So a note below here, when I refer to elevating the worker, kind of sounds a little communist-ish. Ideally, in both socialism and communism, you are elevating the worker. But whereas communism doesn't look for a central government, it looks for the average worker to kind of control their own stuff. Socialism maintains that identity of the country, the state, the government. And that's what Hitler needs. Hitler needs to be the hero of the workers. If he can keep pumping them up, they will pump him up, and it will keep going as a feedback cycle. So how does this turn into World War II? And the activity that goes with this video is a timeline activity where you'll be able to sort in order the events that lead to the breakout of another world war. So Hitler in his industry begins to transform a lot of factories into military and weaponry development factories. So factories that maybe before would have built children's wagons now might be working on tank parts. And this really shows that Hitler is preparing to make Lebensraum, make that land grab, a reality. The rest of the world's not done. As soon as they start seeing the changes in industry in Germany, they know it's coming. But do you want to be the one that approaches Hitler about it? Especially since people still remember World War I. No one really wanted to be the one to stick their neck out and say something about it. Hitler, in his idea of Anschluss, and the Nazi Party, the idea of Anschluss, the unity of all Germans, starts to get into motion. The Austrian Nazi Party proposes that nationally the Austrians vote about taking or allowing Germany to absorb them and take them over. Well, when the vote hits, majority supports Hitler and supports the arrival of German troops into Vienna. And after the vote is a clear win for Hitler, the Nazis now possess Austria. And so Hitler's got to win, and Lebensraum is starting to happen. Now, Hitler wants to see how much he can get away with. He understands very clearly that he is visible. He's in the center of Europe, and also he is a country that didn't exactly lay low after World War One. So he knows that the eyes are on him, but he really wants to see how far he can push the rest of the world to achieve those goals of Lebensraum, of Anschluss, and of industry control. He looks to his east, and in the country of Czechoslovakia, which is not a majority German-speaking country, but there is a population that does identify as German in the West. He looks at it as a test drive of his Lebensraum, his land-conquering ideals. The Sudetenland, which is Western Czechoslovakia, as you can see on the map here, is highlighted. It's in darker brown. These are people who identify just as in their blood and their culture as Germans. He invades the Sudetenland. Czechoslovakia asks for help, and Britain and France don't provide any. They don't want to start a thing. So they allow Hitler to take the Sudetenland. And Czechoslovakia is rightfully pretty mad about it. No one comes to their aid. They just allow Hitler to roll into Sudetenland and conquer. Well, Hitler has already seen now that he can get away with one conquering in the name of German people. So maybe it's time to see what else he can get away with. So he invades the rest of Czechoslovakia. And still, Britain and France do nothing. If I was Czech, I would be so mad at this point. So at a meeting in Munich, finally it's time to have the talk. Britain, France, and Germany get together in the city of Munich to sign a pact to say, hey, Hitler, we see you wanted Czechoslovakia. We see you wanted the Sudetenland. You can have it. But if you go a step further and try conquering other places like Poland, that's going to be enough to incite a war declaration. That will be enough. And so Hitler agrees, I'm not going to invade anything anymore. And obviously, we all have seen what Hitler is like at this point. It's no surprise that the clock is ticking for him to make his invasion. So it hits. Now, behind the scenes, you have Hitler in talks with Joseph Stalin of Russia, now the Soviet Union. We see him starting to feel out how he can, in his vision of expanding territory, gaining more influence and control around the world, if he can line up some allies to help him. Obviously, France, Britain, and the United States are not going to be the ones. They never are going to be the ones. But the new Soviet government under Joseph Stalin doesn't really have any friends either. And Hitler starts secret talks that when the invasions begin of Poland and other places, they can split it like an Oreo. And so they signed secretly the Non-Aggression Pact. The idea that once Hitler decides to set soldiers on the ground in Poland and begin the war to take over more land, to make Lebensraum a reality, he and Stalin would peacefully, between themselves, conquer Poland, dividing the thing, like I said, like an Oreo. So it happens. September 1st, 1939. Germany rolls into Poland. Shortly thereafter, the Soviet Russians roll into Poland from their side as well. Hitler brings a stunning amount of military technology, the Luftwaffe, Air Force, and the others. It's shocking to the Polish, and really that to a lot of people that he would throw that much technology and weaponry at Poland at once. He means business. This is very clear. So, solemnly, sadly, on that day, France and Britain knew they had no other option than to declare war. And as of September 1st, 1939, the war breaks out in Europe.